So as we really bring our attention into the body, we recognize now, what are we doing that with but our mind? We're using our mind. When we say check in with the body, of course, we're not looking at the body with the eyes. We're using our awareness. And really the Buddha, the practice of Buddha, the Dharma, the Buddha's the teacher and the Dharma is the teaching. And the Sangha, the practitioners, whether they're in lay clothes, regular clothes, or in robes, are the human beings who are practicing the Dharma, upholding the teachings. And the main point of the Buddha's teachings was to create freedom from suffering. True liberation means knowing that the ending suffering is definitely possible. So to do that, we need to work on all levels of our physical, our psychic, our spiritual, emotional, our awareness, our intellectual, our consciousness, and really become friends with all of those. So without judgment, without criticism. In fact, actually, the Buddha said, really, the human birth, out of all the many, many kinds of life forms that are coming into existence that have consciousness, just think now how vast the universe is. We know, we can see from space, from telescopes and from all these space explorations, how vast the space is. And we're here on this planet with life. And even on this one planet, there's so many different kinds of life.
I'm gonna lay down and listen to or meditate laying down.
Maybe everyone could put themselves on mute, please, on your side. You can just mute yourself, that would be helpful. And in this expression of human life, we have a consciousness where not only are we aware, I mean, everything that's alive is aware, even little insects are aware. If a mosquito lands on you and it senses you're going to slap it and try to kill it because you don't want it an itch, it will fly away. It's aware that there's danger. And cats are aware, and dogs are aware, horses are aware. Everything that lives, birds and fish are aware. Lobsters are aware. If you catch a lobster and take it out of the trap, it doesn't just lie there docilely. It kind of struggles and tries to escape because it wants its own freedom. And the Buddha said everything that lives in that sense is the same, in cherishing its own life, really wanting freedom and happiness, and not wanting any kind of difficulty or suffering to meet with any kind of challenge to its own life. But he said the human life is especially precious because we have enough situations where we experience freedom a little bit from suffering. And then sometimes we encounter suffering. Things don't go the way we expected them to. We lose our health for a little while. Maybe we lose a loved one. So we understand that life changes and these bodies we have don't last forever. Sometimes we have really great moods and then they change to neutral moods. And sometimes we have a bit sad moods or depressed moods, and then they change again to more stable moods. So he said humans can recognize actually that everything's changing. And by being able to recognize, that means they can recognize that they have a mind, that they really have what he called Buddha nature. And a mind that can be aware of what's going on many levels, not just on the outside, but also especially on the inside. And eventually a mind that can become aware of the mind itself. And so it's really important that we make really good friends with our mind. No matter where we go in this world, no matter whom we're with or what situation we find ourselves in, the certainty is that our mind will be with us. At least we hope so. We hope so. And so we want to have it as our best friend. We don't want to feel criticism or resentful to ourselves. We don't want to feel not worthy. Similarly, we don't want to feel really haughty and overly proud that we're better than others. We want to feel like everyone is just like us in wanting happiness and not wanting suffering. So there's what the Buddha called a very innate equanimity, a very basic equality between ourselves and all other human beings, and between ourselves and everything that lives, in the sense of wanting to have good conditions and that support up our life with peace and calmness, happiness, a sense of comfort and freedom from suffering. And he said, what's unique, especially to human beings, is that when we do encounter suffering, we are in a situation that we can change how we respond. We are in a different situation, for example, than animals who, if they're hungry, they need to wait maybe for their humans to feed them, or they have to go out and hunt and maybe wait a long time before they can find the right food to eat, or they need clean water and they can't really ask someone, hey, please bring me a glass of water. They have to wait to see if someone offers them or they can themselves find water. And so the Buddha said, actually, the human being's quite special in its consciousness because it can become self-aware. It can understand how suffering is not desirable and what to do to try to come out of suffering. On the physical level, for example, something like thirst for suffering, thirst for water, but more deeply, he said, we can learn how to come out of suffering itself. We can learn how to become free altogether. Doesn't mean, he said, that there won't be pain. Pain is part of life, but if there's pain, it doesn't necessarily then mean then we have to suffer. So he was really teaching about how to stay with whatever arises with awareness without grasping at it and try to stop and make it last forever, and also without running away from it. So a kind of very gentle, courageous awareness and a confidence that we can meet whatever's coming up in our life, on the physical, on the emotional, on the spiritual level, through our own awareness, to attend to our own happiness, our own peace of mind, tranquility. And he called this practice the middle way, meaning we don't need too much from the outside to make us happy. We don't need too much food, too much money, too much resource. Similarly, we don't need too much happiness, too much joy, too much pleasure. But we do want it. I mean, actually, in the sense, too much happiness, if we can share it, and it's a very unique, profound happiness through our heart, we can definitely share that and joy and endlessly with others. But we wouldn't be then laughing if we were in the presence of someone who had just lost a loved one. So we would moderate everything based on the happiness of others. We would always keep others' well-being in mind to help us navigate and to control our own expression. It doesn't mean we'd have to become unhappy, but it might mean instead of feeling in that moment overly joyful, we might shift to empathy and compassion and feel like, oh, of course, no one wants to lose a loved one. And in a sense, when we lose someone we love, there's a sadness, but we also can recognize there's a love and joy in that, because if we hadn't cared for that person, we wouldn't feel sad, we wouldn't feel a loss. So that kind of happiness and that kind of loving kindness is also still present, even in the midst of sadness. But sometimes we overemphasize the sorrow and we get lost in that. And Buddha said, please don't do that either, because that doesn't change the situation. That won't bring the loved one back. That won't help your own healing and integration of letting go of that relationship, because everyone in the physical being is going to have to give up this life and the appearances of this life. One time, one day or another, we're going to have to do that. And if we leave behind people who miss us and who, really felt sorry that we're no longer in that appearance with everyone in life, that's kind of a good thing. That means we've made friends, we've spread loving kindness, we've made good connections. And so sadness itself isn't bad, the Buddha said. He said, but if we change our sadness into deep sorrow and depression and suffering, and it makes us immobile, we can't move out of that, he said, that's when we move from pain into suffering. And we have to be careful about that, because that really isn't helpful. And that's really not necessary. So he didn't reject emotions, not at all. But he did talk about the middle way in trying to really see very clearly, using wisdom and compassion, like two wings of a bird. so that we have a very fluid, a very natural expression of moving through the life as we're living it. And we're actually our best friend to ourselves. We're not denying ourselves any feelings, but we're also not getting overly identified with only any kind of one feeling. So this is called practicing the good heart. And we'll just go into a calm, abiding shamatha meditation now. And this is extremely important, the practice that's called Bodhichitta. And Bodhi means awakened, and Chitta means mind. And this mind of awakening really is talking about altruism. So it's talking about, first of all, practicing this awakening mind for our own benefit. Because if we have bodhicitta, if we have an awakened mind, a heart in a mind, an awareness that deeply, deeply cares first for our own happiness, and then equally and especially to attain all happiness for all sentient beings, this, the Buddha said, is a very healthy mind. This is a very beautiful, the highest kind of awareness and practice we can ever practice in any tradition, in any form. We don't really have to do much to see the wisdom in that if we cultivate happiness, we benefit for ourselves. But especially if we think about happiness for all sentient beings, when we're with others and they feel very relaxed, very peaceful, very looking forward to being with us, of course, we're creating a happiness for them. And there are many more than just one, so we're multiplying the happiness. It's good to be happy when we're on our own and to be able to be independent and doing our own life. That's also very important. But how much better if we can start to ripple that effect outwards to everyone we come into contact with, so that happiness of one then becomes happiness of two, or happiness of three, happiness of four, and so on and so forth, endlessly. So this is what Buddha's talking about. If we're practicing this good heart of bodhicitta in our own heart minds, we're able then to generate the realization of this awakened mind, which is the door to this Mahayana path to enlightenment. So in our tradition here in Tibetan Buddhism, it's part of what's called the Mahayana Buddhist tradition. And the other practice is called Theravada tradition. And everybody's Buddhist, but there's a little bit of a different approach and little bit of a different goal. And in Mahayana Buddhism, we're deeply, deeply concerned with not only our own liberation from suffering and freedom from that, but the liberation for all beings. Doesn't mean we're here to try to convert anyone to Buddhism or convince them of Buddhism. It only doesn't mean that at all. It only means that when we ourselves cultivate these beautiful quality of a good heart, a warm heart, as a decent human being, being ethical, being kind, being respectful, being gentle, compassionate, and loving, that we act that way for everything and everyone that we encounter, to animals, to the planet, living plants, to little insects, to other human beings, wherever we go on the planet, whatever age person we meet or nationality. These things are, you cannot discriminate, because you remember, just like me, all living beings want happiness and do not want suffering. So we cultivate this as part of the Mahayana practice, meaning we need to generate these kind of deep realizations of the benefits of practicing the good heart first in our own practice, to go, oh yeah, well, that makes sense. That's not really rocket science. That's pretty reasonable sounding. And then we start to really understand then why we need to realize, to renounce all of samsara, meaning to reject the ordinary emotions as they come up that are created out of ignorance, that are created out of strong self-grasping and self-cherishing, selfishness, and strong hatred, aversion. We know that none of our own happiness will be created from those kinds of emotions, let alone it doesn't make anyone else around us happy when those things come up. We know that from our own expression and experiences of that. When our own mind goes under ignorance and goes under greediness and goes under hatred, it's just not a nice, happy state of mind. It doesn't feel comfortable for ourselves. And definitely it doesn't feel comfortable and nice for those around us. So there's wisdom that we can explore. This is what the Buddha called samsara, which means this state of suffering that's getting created when we don't pay attention to which emotions we should cultivate that are beneficial, which states of mind are really helpful, and which situations, states of mind are really not beneficial. And so that's why mindfulness is a big part of our practice. And that's why compassion is a big part of our practice, because when we're honest and mindful with our own states of mind that arise and change, we just have to say, yes, actually, I know that there's delusion, that ignorance arises. I know sometimes some greed, selfishness arises. I know sometimes some anger arises, some pride or some kind of envy. And we just have to be basically honest and kind with those states of mind, because as human beings, we shouldn't try to fool ourselves, and it's wonderful we're practicing the Dharma. And once we do this for our own side, then it becomes very clear that we can practice like that for every sentient being, no matter their gender, their politics, their own delusions. Maybe they're starting wars. Of course, that's not going to be helpful for that being. Maybe someone's stealing. That's not going to be helpful for that human being to have a stealing habit. Maybe somebody's spreading gossips and slandering. Of course, that's not going to be helpful. Usually what we focus on too much is the victim of those things, and we take sides with who's being a victim, but genuinely both sides lose. Somebody's harmed, of course, that's not feeling good. Someone's doing the harming, and in this view, it's even worse for the habits that they're creating. So we try to hold that wisdom and compassion equally, to try to understand it. And we really hold in our practice benefiting all sentient beings. May we all be free from these afflictive emotions that cause the suffering. It doesn't mean that we don't try to do something if there's harm being created. We try to bring that situation quickly through dialogue, through trying to be reasonable and discussing. And it might mean then we're mature and we can hold silence and we step away from it until our mind is cool enough to come back to talk about it. But doing that in our own practice as a single human being, learning how to effectively address our unhelpful emotions, and then coming back and saying, geez, I'm sorry, I spoke out of my ignorance and I don't want to say that, I see how aversion came up or judgment came up. And then owning that, you get the chance then to start again. And people genuinely will say, that's all right, I understand, because you're taking that responsibility. And when individuals start to learn how to do this, then diplomacy can happen. Groups can start to learn how to dialogue and how to resolve differences through mutual understanding. You can start one by one with two, and then two by two are groups. But there's a kind of a dignity that recognizes in your own experience, I'm capable of this. And so are all beings. And by doing that in your own heart and mind, your own awareness, you're actually showing that you're capable to show up to be someone who's capable of that for others to engage on that level, giving confidence and encouragement. So we renounce in this life means we let go of clinging to these destructive emotions. We let go of clinging to the desire which grasps on only our own happiness in this life. We let go of this main obstacle that thinks just our body is the most important, that everything we believe in our mind is absolutely true, and everyone else should know that that's absolutely true too. I mean, this isn't realistic. We have to have dialogue, because if everyone believes they've come upon the absolute truth, there's no possibility for transformation and understanding and growth. And we know there's immense strength in diversity, in the valuing of many, many different experiences and perspectives. So we need humility to be able to listen deeply. And this is the way our body, speech, and mind start to become the Dharma. We cut off concern with just worldly issues, which clings not only to our own happiness, but just to the happiness of this one lifetime. Because in Buddhism, we believe that we'll live, that there's been beginningless and endless lifetimes, and that every moment we're alive right now is going to lead us into further expressions of life that are going to be similar to this moment. That's why ethics matter so much. It's not we're just trying to get out of the suffering for this one life. That's the Theravadan goal. Theravadan Buddhist practice just for liberation from samsara. They're not thinking about helping others come out. They're not necessarily thinking about, oh, they're going to come back as a bodhisattva to live in the future to help others through the Dharma free from their suffering. It's just like individual, let's get out of suffering and done deal, and that's it. So Mahayana Buddhists are really thinking, let's not be concerned just with this one happiness in this life, because we have to free ourselves from this one worldly concern, which is the basis of all the problems, not only of our everyday experience in this one life, but once we're free of that, we can become a great bodhisattva, someone like His Holiness the Dalai Lama, His Holiness the Karmapa, Jetsama Tenzin Palmo, many who have in their cultures can remember past lives and are just continuing on and coming to live and uphold the Dharma just for the benefit for beings who don't know anything about Dharma, who don't know how to come out of suffering. So this is the Mahayana practice. And this builds, like any good practice, like I just met a friend who's a violinist. She had to leave to go do a whole new scale of practice because she doesn't know the piece that the Portland Symphony is going to play. And she's been playing her violin for decades. I mean, she's in her 60s, in her late 60s, and she still goes when she has to learn a new piece to practice. And Dharma is so lovely that way, because we never finish practicing. Even someone like Jetsama Tenzin Palmo, even our Khenzo Rinpoche, he always says, I'm still practicing. Don't you think you need to still? I said, oh yes, Rinpoche, yes, you're right. And Jetsama just says, we're all here just practicing, Dasel. Everyone's just, yeah, I'm still practicing too, day by day, all the way up to Buddhahood. So there's a humility in acknowledging still that until you're a Buddha, you're still here and practicing. But in the meantime, we do free ourselves from being trapped in samsara, and we can become free from samsara, but it doesn't then mean that we've attained Buddhahood. We're still working on the Bodhisattva path and practice, this mind of enlightenment. And maybe slowly, like a lotus blossoming, our mind is able to benefit and become more open and brilliant for more and more beings through the Dharma. And once we let go of the main obstacle of attachment to just this one life, our Dharma practice starts to really clarify, because attachment and desire is the basis of all confusion. And in order to overcome this strong self-cherishing, this grasping, we need to meditate on slowly transforming our mind. This is why we're talking about becoming a good friend to oneself. So as you're breathing in now, just use your breath through compassion to really connect the breath and the body with a very deep loving kindness on the in-breath, as if you're breathing in all the happiness and joy of all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. If you have a teacher, you can bring your teacher to mind. And feel that your teacher is sending you deep compassion and happiness that you're practicing the Dharma. If you don't have a teacher, you could use someone like His Holiness the Dalai Lama, or if you're not Buddhist, you could use a sacred teacher from your own tradition that inspires you to want to really practice this sacred spiritual happiness with your own human existence, that it's very precious. And as you breathe in, you can bring your attention down to your heart center in the middle of your chest, here, and feel a warmth in the heart that really fills up with a loving kindness for oneself. Or maybe it's in your smile. Maybe as you breathe in and you do feel happy and appreciative to yourself, you can smile, or maybe it's somewhere in your head. I don't know where it's coming into your body. You just feel it as a joy. and a really very deep peace of mind. As you breathe out, you're sending this deep peace of mind and happiness out to all other beings, not just human beings, but all other life. You're sending it out as a gift back to the whole interconnected universe, Buddhaverse, to every kind of living creature so that they may have happiness as well. And we don't discriminate just for friends, not for enemies, and we don't remember to care about our strangers. We really wholeheartedly, with altruism, with selflessness, which is the Buddha said the true way things exist, genuinely send out this peace of mind and happiness that all other precious dear mother beings receive the same happiness for themselves. The same acknowledgement of the dignity of life, the worthiness of their own heart mind to experience joy and experience happiness and to be free from suffering. The most venerable Thich Nhat Hanh, a wonderful master, Buddhist master, and also in the Mahayana Zen tradition, says it like this. He says, when we take time to breathe in, we can just become that best friend by breathing in and saying, hello, my dear. I don't often give you the attention you need, but I'm here for you now. And you're saying that to yourself, because it's true. I mean, most people are very good and they're very busy in life trying to help others and trying to, save the planet or take care of their family or their pet or make some beautiful art or cook food for people. I mean, human beings are genuinely and generally very quite kind by their nature. And they're looking outwards and always very active in life for others, for other causes, for others' happiness. But we need again to just touch base and really remind ourselves, like, yes, actually starting with inside for ourselves is the best place. So that we become really, really, truly human beings and not human doings. And that we pull this loving concern for the planet or for cultural preservation, for the environment, for justice, whatever it is, that we pull those concerns out of the intellect, out of the head, and we ground deeply into the heart. With a deep trust that these challenges will be resolved, that we are capable from that place of loving kindness and compassion to bring non-judgment, to bring genuine altruistic compassion selflessly, by first really cultivating that in our heart, mind. We have to. Then we can share it really open-heartedly, genuinely, selflessly with others, with that respect, with that dignity that's coming from inside our own heart, mind, and genuinely giving that out to others as a mirroring of their own Buddha nature back to them, or their own human dignity, however you want to think of it. And there's a gentleness there. There's an open, radical acceptance of everything you might have already done in this life that you don't think was skillful or wasn't ethical, or that you're a bit ashamed of, that you maybe wouldn't want anyone to know about. You can just be present with everything right now. There's no judgment. There's just a genuine, wide open, radical acceptance. That is the essence of complete altruistic loving kindness and compassion. And as you breathe out, you can give that same open-hearted worthiness of selfless, open-hearted loving kindness, altruistic compassion to all beings who live, no matter how horribly, from their own delusions, their own ignorance, their own confusion of self-cherishing and grasping, their own anger and hatred, no matter how horribly beings can sometimes act. In fact, most of the suffering on this very planet is really created out of the human ignorance and self-cherishing ego. But anyway, never mind. Still, we wish everybody unconditional loving kindness, unconditional compassion, that they may too come to deeply wish to be free of these causes of suffering, which arise from this delusion, this ignorance, which arise because of selfishness, self-grasping, self-cherishing, limited view, my ideas, my body, my country, my politics, my religion, my nationality, my tribe. These are all very, very tiny view that then exclude the rest of humanity. And Buddha was talking about something much more radically liberating than that. He was talking about loving kindness way beyond any kind of limitations of labels, and way beyond judging some worthy and others not. He said, everything that lives will become Buddha. Everything that lives will awaken to its true nature. And so we can have acceptance for where we've missed the mark, with a commitment and resolve to try our best to acknowledge that we don't have it down perfect, to understand that we're a work in progress, as is everybody. And this is the development of our wisdom, because it eliminates our ignorance. And when we eliminate our ignorance, we also start to eliminate our self-cherishing, because self-cherishing and self-grasping follows ignorance. And when we really make concern for others the primary focus, we get rid of our hatred and anger. We try to look more deeply with wisdom and with method of skill and with compassion. May they also genuinely be free from suffering. May they also genuinely be happy. May we all, so it goes from the I to the you to the we. So we come completely out of duality into deep selflessness, universality. And without this warm, good heart, and without this warm, good heart and compassion, these other thoughts that rise up from ignorance and self-cherishing and anger and hatred harm us, and they harm other sentient beings. And from birth in this life, this one lifetime now, from this one lifetime until now, from birth until this moment, when we haven't practiced loving kindness and compassion, when our mind has been under the control of self-cherishing and anger and hatred and ignorance and many other disturbing thoughts, we've given a lot of harm to other sentient beings as well as to ourselves. And when our mind has not been patient or compassionate in nature to ourself, our oneself, we've given harm to many other sentient beings in this life, and even beyond people and animals, but to even nature, to the environment around us. So Buddha's saying, but this isn't the final way things are. This is just confusion. And this is why we practice to cultivate the good heart. We begin to remove the ignorance through wisdom, through practice. That's why in Buddhism we call it our practice. And we begin to remove self-grasping and selfish concern with deep, true concern, other concern that even overrides stopping to think much about oneself. So when we sit and practice, we do check in with our own states of mind, our own truth, our own moment through meditation. But we all know most of our life is not lived sitting in meditation on the cushion. Even as a nun, it's not like that. Most of our life, we're moving through the world, we're engaged with others. And so we want this kind of awareness to come out of our seated practice so that we can take the awareness with us wherever we go. But in our formal practice session of meditation, like right now, we cultivate this for our own mind so that once we're moving around, that's with us. And then we, as much as possible, remember to check in with that throughout our day. And even at night, sometimes if you get skillful throughout your dreams, throughout your first waking moment, you can check in. What's the nature? What's happening in my mind right now? The nature of my mind, my thoughts. What am I putting my awareness on? And we really start to keep that friendly, clear mind with us at all times. If we had already completely eliminated all of our disturbing thoughts in the past, there would be no way for them to arise right now in this life. And there would have been no reason to have been born with them. But because we weren't able to eliminate them all in our past lives, we've been born still with a quite egocentric view, a self-cherishing thoughts and other disturbing thoughts. And from beginningless rebirths, we haven't been able to eliminate this self-cherishing ignorance and all the anger and attachment and other disturbing thoughts. And so with these thoughts, we continue to experience harm ourselves and to all other numberless sentient beings. And this is why we practice, is to change our attitude right now in this life while we have this perfect opportunity, this perfect human rebirth. And the Tibetans have an interesting expression that the eyes look out and look at everything but themselves. They see everything out there but themselves. And the deeper meaning of that is we really, in our meditation practice, take time to turn the gaze inward. Of course, not the physical eye, but we could even turn our gaze now to becoming more aware of the mind that is meditating, the mind that's listening, that's cultivating kindness. Where is this mind? Where is the nature of this mind? What is it like? And we can look again with this awareness, not only where is this mind and what is the nature of this mind, where are the sounds going after I stop speaking? And not only that, where are the habits that are difficult, such as the self-cherishing or the anger and hatred, where are those once we stop feeling them? They where do they go? Where also do the bliss and the joy and the happiness go after we stop experiencing them? We can investigate with our mind where what is going on really. And now we're really, with this investigation, coming into experiencing and touching upon this experience of emptiness, tompani or shunyata, the emptiness of inherent nature. The mind is empty. It's very impossible to find the mind. It's non-physical. It's beginningless and endless, and its nature is to know, to just be aware. But if we ask even the neuroscientists, they don't really know where is that mind. They're looking for it. And we can use our awareness to turn back upon itself and ask, yes, actually, where is this mind? How am I aware? How does the mind know? And that is such a close truth that it's so hard to see it sometimes because we don't turn back and ask and look. But when we do, we start to understand actually, even the mind is quite empty. It doesn't mean that we don't exist. It's just pointing to the way we do. And this is called the wisdom wing of our practice, knowing deeply this aspect of how things arise. So another way to think of emptiness is dependent arising. How does the mind itself arise? How do thoughts arise? How do feelings arise? What is their nature? Are they permanent? Are they very temporary? What states of mind are beneficial to oneself and others? We can experience that by putting awareness. Peace of mind, that's beneficial. That feels good. Good. Then more of that, please. We can say that. That's what we want to cultivate. That's what we want to learn how to create more of, the beneficial states of mind. How do we do that? By being naturally aware. What is helpful? What practices bring peace? What practices or habits don't? And we don't need to be critical of anything because it's just the awareness that's needed, not the judgments. We don't need to label. In the sense, we're saying the things that help us, those things we want to cultivate, because being helpful, being at peace, being kind, happy, joyful, blissful, holding things lightly with equanimity, equality, helps create environments that are very open-hearted, very welcoming, and very beneficial to oneself and others. And there doesn't need to be a judgment that everyone then needs to become a Buddhist or something like this, or everyone needs to be doing the meditation. But by being more compassionate, we're inviting others to experience compassion. That's a good thing, just as a warm-hearted human being. And of course, by having peace of mind when others lose their peace of mind will be much more beneficial in that moment by learning how to have trained our minds to not lose our temper and to stay calm and clear, to become very beneficial to others and to difficult situations instantly. And we won't react based on the environment and what's happening in the environment. We'll be able to keep our peace of mind and to be able to respond either by holding noble silence or knowing very clearly with wisdom and compassion what will be of benefit to share. But to do that, we need to practice. So breathing in, we bring happiness and peace and joy, loving kindness, compassion to oneself. And breathing out, we send it equally out to all living beings. And this is a very simple meditation we can do wherever we are, sitting on the cushion or driving in the car or sitting in a board room or working on something at work, being in the grocery store, wherever we find ourselves, waiting in the doctor's office. It's very profound practice. It sounds very simple and easy, and in the way it is, and it feels great wherever you do it. But difficult part of it is you got to remember to do it. And if we want to go a little further into that practice, once we get really good at doing the breathing in, all those beautiful qualities for oneself, and breathing out, all those beautiful qualities for others, we can also then learn how to stay out of the traps of what are called the 8 worldly concerns. So often when we have self-grasping and self-cherishing, it's because we want pleasure and we don't want pain. So we grab on or grasp for pleasure, and we push away and have aversion to pain. And we often think, oh, we want only gain. We never want to lose anything. So we want gain, we don't want loss. And our mind likes to hear praise and compliments. We like to have praise, but we don't like to hear blame. We don't like to hear words of blame, even if it's really accurate. We'd still deny that we want to hear that. And sometimes we need to have our mistakes pointed out so we can learn from them. But often our pride prevents us from being able to really deeply hear that as constructive criticism. We just say, oh, I'm getting blamed. That's not fair. I don't want to hear that. So then we just want to hear the good things. And often we only want our name to have fame. We want to have a big name and that everyone knows who we are and Everyone has to hear our name and think how wonderful we are. And we really don't want to have any kind of libel, any kind of slander, our name being in disrepute. And so we push away from that, or we get angry about it, and we defend ourselves if we find out that someone's been saying something about us or writing something about us. So the Buddha said, stay away from these 8 worldly concerns of pleasure and pain, loss and gain, praise and blame, and fame and infamy. He said, go right down the middle with your good, warm-hearted practice of genuine selfless loving kindness, genuine selfless compassion, genuine selfless joy and bliss, and genuine selfless non-biased attitude, not strong attachment and not strong aversion. Just learn how to keep your mind unshaken by whatever else is going on around you and circumstances, to keep your mind really clean and clear and your heart really warm and open towards your own self and whatever experience is arising, and not to be drawn and pulled off balance by anything else that's going on externally, any other vibrations of sound that others are saying, either to you or reporting about the state of the world, or any other kind of look you think someone's looking at you, either nicely or not nicely. Your own warm heart should never be influenced by anything outside. It should be the very mind unshaken from a genuine rootedness and wisdom and compassion, selflessly, altruistically, that is not conditioned or conditioned on anything, but is a deeply, truly unconditional state. And of course, this takes practice. Of course it does. So whenever someone really has lost their temper and they're there in front of you, cutting you off in traffic, and you want to throw a few 4-letter words out that aren't good, love, you have to say good, love, thank you. Now I can practice patience. That's your precious teacher cutting you off. But if your 4-letter words start with other things other than good and love, then you have to bring your joy and your sense of humor in, and remind yourself, now I have the chance to really practice the mind unshaken by cultivating steady patience in my practice. And to do that, we need difficult moments to arise so that we can see, is our altruism really selfless? Is it really unconditional? And without difficult situations, sometimes we say difficult people, but it's really just their own mind habits. How will we know if our love is really unconditional, if our compassion is really universal? We need kind of challenges, the ones that we label enemy. Those are really our most precious teachers. And when we really practice deeply with ourselves, the patience becomes what's called the finest armor. It protects us from any negative states of mind, any difficulties in coming out of our practice. It's only always auspicious. Whatever will arise, we'll be able to handle anything. And this is really, really why we say practicing the good heart. And that's how we also do what's called mind transformation. By being happy for whatever comes, especially difficult ones, learning how to work in our practice. It does not mean becoming a doormat. It does not mean becoming a victim or just letting, unethical situations roll unchecked. But it means first staying with your own practice so that your own mind is really seeing the situation, working from a place of clarity, not reactivity, taking a few moments to breathe, holding noble silence, and then getting more wisdom and compassion of what is the best way to handle a situation. And then as we practice more and more, we become more awakened to the true nature of the reality, seeing the way things exist, seeing the way things arise. And with that wisdom, we understand, yes, actually, those difficult habits are not helpful. If people are only driven out of delusion or ignorance and selfishness and anger and hatred, of course, that's not going to bring a happy world. And so we start to see that we have more confidence and courage in our practice to have a determination. And the benefit of our practice really, really will come back immediately in the moment for the benefit of a situation, but our own heart and mind will feel really wonderful. Wow, wonderful. Yeah, good job. You handled it well. Good, your practice is coming along. And when more difficult, we call them obstacles, arise, challenges, things aren't going the way we wish, they just develop and unfold smoothly, we go, oh, now my practice is really working, because things are becoming a little more challenging. It must mean I'm up for the challenge. That's what Dharma practice is like. And so we gain the confidence to strongly be able to probe into our own minds. And as soon as a mental emotional affliction arises, we know it endangers oneself and others. And so we strongly confront them and we avert them. Not through judgment, not through criticism, but through awareness. Aha, my sneaky frustration. I'm aware you're trying to turn into anger. I'm not going to let you do that. I'm going to stay cool. You know, the Buddha said, the practitioners of the Dharma, cool are we, thus gone are we. Cool meaning we keep our cool. You know, I mean, back in the 70s, it was good in this country to be cool. I mean, some of us weren't born back then yet, but, you know, we can still be cool. And the Buddha liked to say, thus gone means going away from these difficult emotions that are not helpful. We leave them behind. So let's close our practice this evening together with a very deep feeling of gratitude to oneself, taking time to practice, cultivating this good heart, cultivating this wisdom and compassion, taking time from our precious schedule, our precious life, to really be practicing what will be of really genuine benefit no matter where we find ourselves, in our own company, in the company of our loved ones, our partners, our children, our siblings, our colleagues, our friends, our neighbors, our strangers, even those that might appear and arise as our enemies. We can still and definitely want to be of benefit to them, because the ones that are really difficult in our lives, beings who have anger habits, who have aggression habits, you know, these we say, when I see a being of unpleasant character oppressed by strong negativity and suffering, may I hold that one very dear, for they are rare to find, as if I've discovered a jewel treasure. Because honestly, most people are not like that. You know, if we go out to the grocery store, you know, people are genuinely there to do their own grocery shopping and sometimes chat a little bit, but they're not slamming their carts into each other, or being really rude to each other. I mean, they're just going about their day. Often we don't really meet with very difficult. That's why it's shocking. You know, that's why the news is so horrific, because they pick the most shocking things going on, because mostly that's not going on, but it gets our attention. So we have to be very careful. Where do we place our attention? Use your awareness, place it on the loving, positive, good, peaceful, ordinary contentment. That's enough. The other difficulties of the world scenario, yes, there are challenges there, but mostly they're challenges that so many good people would like to resolve. And use your practice to see the practice isn't about taking sides at all. It's about being of ultimate benefit to the greatest good. So we'll come out of our meditation. I'll just do a dedication of our practice. So we start our practice at the beginning. It's good in the beginning, good in the middle, and good in the end. In that snow mountain encircled land, source of every benefit and joy, may Lord Tenzin Gyatso Chenrezig remain in life till samsara's end. Through this virtue, may I swiftly, having gained Guru Buddha state, place each and every sentient being without exception in that state. We pray for the one who knows all the scriptures with the power of his intelligence to have a long life through the solid strength of his mind and his mastery of life, in order to benefit the teachings and all beings through his good wholehearted resolve. And we also pray for the Holy Lady Jetsama Tenzin Palma's highest noble aspirations to benefit herself, the Dharma, and all mother sentient beings. And we pray that this precious Bodhi mind, this mind of Bodhichitta, the awakening mind of true, good, warm-hearted altruism, arises within our own heart mind. And once it's arisen, may it flourish and grow forevermore, so that we're always only be bringing ourselves into very beneficial life circumstances that will be of benefit to oneself and to others by practicing this good heart, as well as where it has not arisen, where beings haven't encountered this kind of warm, precious Bodhi heart mind, that we may be a reflection of that, and that they may also then in their own way encounter it and become inspired to cultivate their own Bodhi mind up all the way to enlightenment. And so we ask for the blessings of Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva of compassion, as well as Manjushri, the Bodhisattva of wisdom, as well as Lama Tsongkhapa to bless our practices tonight together, that we ourselves may always be meeting with favorable conditions that help us practice our Dharma. May our meditation practice continue to grow like the waxing moon for our own happiness, the happiness of all mother sentient beings. And we ask also that Tashi Getze Ling will create the causes and conditions to be a center of pure Dharma practice through all of the beautiful qualities of Dharma, to uphold it in this very suffering world for the happiness of all, so that everyone may find that the truth is their own mind and heart essence is peace, is loving kindness, is compassion and joy. Thank you everybody for tuning in. I will just make a small announcement that next Monday, the Maine Moment will be a little bit different, because next Monday is May 16th in the Buddhist world, not necessarily in our tradition of Vajrayana Tibetan Buddhism. We celebrate the Buddha's enlightenment in June, but next Monday is what's called Vesak, and it is the celebration of the Buddha Shakyamuni's enlightenment in a very kind of universal Buddhist way. So for Theravada and Mahayana, the United Nations has named it as the date that they recognize the preciousness of the Buddha's teachings toward world peace. And next Monday is also Medicine Buddha. It's the full moon. So it's a very beautiful, powerful evening to practice. And we will have a special program that recognizes the Vesak, but we will do the Medicine Buddha practice from within our tradition. And why Medicine Buddha? Because Buddha was seen as like a doctor who looked at the sufferings of the world, of why beings were sick. He found the Dharma, which is like the script, the medicine. And then the practitioners do the Sangha practices like nurses that help the medicine be taken in order to bring about this depth of healing, not just for oneself, but for the universal benefits. So it will be a very powerful, and it's a lunar eclipse, so it seems cosmically to be a very synchronous kind of event. And so next Monday evening we will begin. It's still at 6:30, but we will practice until maybe 8 or 8:30, maybe a little bit longer. So we of course invite everyone to join, and the Medicine Buddha practice is on the link of the Tashi Getze Ling website, so please, you can download it from there. We're really grateful to everyone who's joining. And if we always offer these programs. We've never asked anybody for donations, but if you're able to and would like to, we'd love it if we have a PayPal button on our website. From anything small to anything medium to anything big, we're really welcome your contribution, because as a monastic, I don't have a paid job, and as a center, we are now trying to cultivate a place to build a new center that will be our Tashi Getze Ling Center, an eco-Dharma center established here in Maine to continue to spread and hold and share this precious Buddha Dharma. So if you're able to, please visit the website, and you can drop a few coins into the Dana bowl there. So thank you, everybody. Have a beautiful week. I hope you had a beautiful practice. It was wonderful to sit with you this evening.
Thank you. Good night.
Good evening, good night.
Thank you.
you.
Have a good night.
Stay blessed, everybody. Stay blessed.
Thank you, Tasha
Barbara.
Dede, Jule.
Yeah. Tasha Julie.